It's time for Lunchtime Politics live from Lagos, Nigeria, the nation's commercial nerve center. I'm Jeffrey Uzanga. Let's begin with the headlines. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, asks the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to sue political parties who embark on early campaigns. The National Association of Resident Doctors embark on indefinite strike following agitation over working condition and welfare. Thanks again for joining us on the program. It's where we give you that all-access pass to what's playing out in the polity and in politics. By the way, we're waiting for the inflation numbers for last month. It should be out about this time. As soon as we get those numbers, we'll let you in as far as the CPI numbers are concerned. But let's begin also from what is not political, but it affects governance in the FCT. That has to do with the health sector. Whilst the national body of the National Association of Nigerian and Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors suspended their 5-day nationwide warning strike, the FCT chapter of the association has now declared an indefinite strike in 14 district and general hospitals in the FCT beginning from today. The statement by the Secretary General or General Secretary of the Association of Resident Doctors in that chapter, Mr. Dr. Agbo Afiong, says after the association's emergency general meeting on September the 14th indicates that the action follows the failure of the government, or the management rather, to address any of their demands. Even after a 1-week warning strike, the resident doctors are aggrieved over what they describe as shortage of doctors and specialists, which has left one doctor handling dozens of patients. They are demanding better working conditions and payment to their entitlement. The doctors vow to continue their action until government and management show commitment to their welfare. And away from that, let's head to Rivers State, where youths from Rivers State under the banner of the Rivers Peace Initiative and the National Youth Council of Nigeria, NYCN, have taken to the streets of Port Harcourt, the state capital, in a march calling for peace and unity ahead of the anticipated return to democratic rule in the state. According to the leader of the group, the rally was organized to show that lessons from the period of emergency administration have been embraced and to affirm that the people of Rivers State are prepared to stand behind democratic governance.
We have gone past our worst days. As you saw us coming, there was no trouble. It was all a chant, a clarion call for the peace that we are now enjoying to be sustained. So I believe it's going to give the administrator some sort of satisfaction that his works in the last 6 months is already yielding fruits, because now there is peace, and we are simply asking that this peace should be sustained. It should not be sabotaged by any interest group, by any person, for whatever reason.
Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, youths are voicing concerns over the handling of oil pipeline surveillance contracts in the Niger Delta. While commending President Tinubu and the National Security Advisor for sustaining peace in the region, the groups are arguing and urging the federal government to reconsider its approach and adopt a more inclusive state-by-state framework for safeguarding national vital pipelines.
In Rivers State, our people are increasingly made to feel like a conquered territory. Our surveillance contracts for our pipelines and natural resources have been handed over to contractors who largely are indigenes of Delta states. These contractors has in turn mobilized their own armed groups to secure the rivers, communities, and creeks, thereby generating deep tension and suspicion and resentment amongst our people.
And from Rivers, we head to Adamawa State, where the People's Democratic Party is putting in place measures to consolidate its political stronghold with the successful conduct of ward congresses across the 21 local government areas. Chairman of the PDP National Committee on Adamawa State Ward Congresses and Secretary to the Taraba State Government, Gibson Katabs, who monitored the exercise in selected wards, said he's satisfied with both the impressive turnout and the peaceful atmosphere that characterized the process.
We're very impressed with the early turnout of the delegates, the party women and men that have turned out in their numbers to either vote for their candidates or affirm consensus candidates. We are very, very impressed with the orderliness we've seen in all the polling units. We are happy with the unity we see among the party members in all the wards we have visited, and we are very impressed. The Constitution allows for elective offices where you have more than one candidate, and it allows for consensus. And so where there are elective offices, the delegates or the party supporters will vote for their candidates. Where there are congresses, they will do the affirmation.
We have conducted our own World Congress by consensus, which is the popular demand of the community, and we have elected our own local government ward escorts for the period of 4 years, which we feel they are competent and they can move the party forward.
Let's not talk about what the legal luminary Femi Falana is asking the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to be stricter in regulating early political campaigns by parties, asking it to charge violators to court. Mr. Falana explains that if such individuals fail to comply with the order of the court, such persons will be committed to contempt and will go to jail. He spoke on our political program, Sunday Politics.
Section 94 has prescribed that election campaign begin 150 days to elections and 24 hours to the election. There will be no political campaigns. Section 95 empowers INEC to drop rules and regulations. The Constitution, paragraph F, part 1 of the third schedule, has empowered INEC, the Constitution has empowered INEC to monitor campaigns in line with rules and regulations prescribed by INEC. So INEC has not, up till now, brought out rules and regulations to stop this illegality. The law cannot cover all situations. The law drafters thought they were dealing with a civilized political class. No. Now that they are violating the law, INEC has a duty empowered by the Constitution and the Electoral Act to bring out rules and regulations. And by the way, INEC is required to charge some of these guys before the court. Let them come to court and say, sorry, my lord, there's no provision for punishment. Merely ordering them to speak. And if you fail to comply with the order of court, you'll be committing contempt and you can go to jail. So let INEC not be deceived into believing that we can have political campaigns for 4 years. It's not gone anywhere.
Let's bring in my guests who will explore that conversation further, plus other issues around the country. Mr. Kunle Lawal is the Executive Director of Electoral College Nigeria. Mr. Lawal, good to see you again.
Great to see you, Geoffrey, and it's always a pleasure to be on the stage.
You know, let's piggyback from what the legal luminary has just talked about. And, you know, my little exposure to mathematics, there's something in real analysis, I think when in algebra, we said something is bounded upward and bounded below, bounded above and below. What that simply means is if you have a number from 1 to 10, and that is all the numbers you have, and that is strict, just the numbers. You can't go below 1, you can't go above 10. So we have the supremum and infimum. Now, when you look at the law in section 94, so that is cited, although the Constitution or the Electoral Acts, because INEC is saying that the issue around these early campaigns, they are incapable of doing anything because what the law spoke about expressly has to do with 24 hours. But the first subsection of 94, which I would like to read to you, and I raised this last week, I would like you to build from to make your position known, is that the law says, for the purpose of this act, the period of campaigning in public by every political party shall commence 150 days before the polling day and end 24 hours prior to that day. So 149 days. That's what I mean by bounded up above, bounded below. Isn't this a premise for litigation for INEC to walk through to stop this recklessness by the political class?
Let's also, before we begin this conversation, let's also remember critically that INEC is empowered by the Constitution to create new guidelines for elections. So INEC is empowered if those laws do not directly control campaigns or campaigns before time, or does not be distinct, because the real problem is that there's no clear distinct between, you know, campaigns and so-called political mobilizations, which political parties claim they go through. And once that is the situation, I think that INEC, which is empowered by the Constitution, can critically create a new set of guidelines. In those actions will now be found in contempt of elections, because whether we like it or not, INEC's poor enforcement causes a lot of tension. And early campaigns have brought about heavy financial burden on smaller political parties and smaller aspirants, which makes the entire democratic structure financially reliant. It also has caused a lot of misinformation and disinformation, which we know has gone on quite a lot preceding. It has also brought ethnic divides, etc. I would say there should be guidelines by INEC, and that's looking forward. There should be guidelines by INEC enforcing that parties only discuss policies right now and internal party democracy and nothing else that involves campaigns towards 2027 or any other year in the future. We must allude to the fact that these early campaigns totally distort total and potential to provide governance, because the whole conversation now is what we're going to do in 2027 and not maybe the price of the dollar or what exactly is going on in Nigeria at this particular point in time.
So for you, is it that we're now giving up on, or we've thrown our hands off, literally, because the politicians here are supposed to be at the vanguard of protecting the rules that govern them, but at this point, they are the ones even breaking the law. What do we do about them beyond what INEC can do?
The truth is, well, I must clearly state this, that INEC has been quite, and if I can use a very cool word, lukewarm about the situation in political parties. With these conversations, how is it possible political parties have multiple primaries? How is it possible political parties, when there's a clearly recognized National Executive Council, how is it possible political parties can mandate to do anything and they'll say it's our supporters? That's our supporters in quote. How is it? Who exactly are we talking about? Who is being sanctioned? And let's also remember that these early campaigns also infringe on campaign limits, which INEC has refused to enforce. If there's a limit to run for president, which the limit is 5 billion, I can say every top presidential candidate who scored above 1 million votes in the 2023 election abused that privilege before primaries, or let's just say at primaries level. We had already exhausted this, and INEC has never acted. So I think the politicians are emboldened by the inaction of INEC.
Interesting perspective. So let's even break this even further down. What do you think, in your view? You have said it in passing, but I try to layer the issue so that people will appreciate, that may feel this is just, furore, or what's the big deal? Because the rule of law is a fundamental problem. And the funny thing is that the rule of law is the lowest hanging fruit in democratic development. Every other thing is a very big lever that you have to move with so many parts. But the rule of law is the rule of law. That's what equalizes all of us, no matter our differences or where we come from. So as far as this issue is concerned, what is this early campaign costing us? That's an important conversation we need to have.
I think the largest cost to us will be, first, the poor attendance to governance in the country. I think that governance has totally been ignored. Let me to, if we're to just say in passing, also the litter of our capital city by campaign billboards. And going on to more serious things that are going on, I think the heavy finance is spent on campaigns, which could be invested in infrastructure or any other thing, or even developing the party, I think has also come to a great cost. It's also the threat to the national sovereignty of Nigeria by, the disinformation and misinformation that's going on, which has brought in ethnic and religious slurs into the conversation. I've never seen. I'm watching politics for the last maybe 4 election cycles. I've never seen Nigeria divided on ideals. There's no more concept of what being a Nigerian is. The questions are strictly regional or strictly, let's put it into the 6 geopolitical zones, either north or south, or the 6 geopolitical zones, or down to even tribe. Those are the kind of conversations that we're having. So I think biggest is that there is no one Nigeria right now in the conversation. Nobody's having a Nigerian conversation. We're having multiple, I don't know, relevant conversations.
There's another part of the conversation I would like you to intervene, and I know that you've been heavy on this one, and that has to do with citizens' responsibility. God forbid, I do not pray, I do not support, for whatever reason, what has played out in Nepal. But if you look at the flip side, you also not blame the young people who are literally burning their country down, which is totally unacceptable. Because when I watch everything I watch and I studied the build up to it, it's just young people's just going literally crazy, saying, okay, since you don't want the country to work for everybody, let's burn it down, which is unacceptable. And I keep telling people, do not say it can't happen anywhere. When people behave as they like, act as they like. Where I'm going to with this question is, I am always afraid the moment citizens rise up, it goes straight into anarchy, because it's like built up anger, people just vent and it gets quite explosive. How can we sequentially begin to engage citizens to now be as forceful as they can in a very civil way to demand accountability and hold people in power to account such that their voices begin to count according to Section 14 of the Constitution that gives supremacy to the people where government takes its powers from?
I need to quickly state at this point, I am totally committed to the sovereignty and the unity of Nigeria. But I must also critically state that we cannot ignore the actions of politicians and people in elected office that push young people to think that Nigeria can become Nepal. So two-pronged conversation. And if those in power also do not think, then we must now go educate. And I'll say something. The Electoral College puts civic education at the forefront of verting this anarchy. And we need to understand how it works. Most conversations we have are go and vote, go and vote. No, we should be able to, if no political party in Nigeria has 1 million political members paying, or members of its party paying dues. We should be able to infiltrate political parties. That's where the conversation starts. It doesn't matter whether it's the incumbent party. The incumbent party doesn't. If 1 million people go into the incumbent party, you will judge who comes out in primaries. They're not enough, and politicians know this. They're not enough in parties. So civic education is critical. They need to be able to. And let's also say this: the Electoral College puts Nigeria generally as civic education, level of civic education, at 82% as politically illiterate. And that is the truth. It's not about whether you went to school, you do not know what someone in office does or what the office is supposed to do. What we've done in Nigeria is create a culture of politics, and culture, of course, is defined as a way of life. So created a culture of politics to handle things that we normally do. And that's not what is tenable. So civic education is critical to avoid anarchy. We need to understand how the system works. I always opine clearly. You cannot engage a system you do not understand. And that is the truth about the entire matter. So to avoid this anarchy, we must put a lot more into civic education. We must teach people that governance and politics does not start at voting. It actually is part of participation, becoming delegates, choosing your leaders, If not, your election will become a selection instead of a democracy.
You know, I was just penning down a few things in my thoughts, and I said, look, young people sometimes they believe their votes don't count. They believe the judiciary is compromised. They believe the law enforcement has been infiltrated. So it's more like a shared level of hopelessness for some of them who feel that the system is already rigged against them. So you can see them thriving in where they know that these guys can't even step up to the field in technology, in places like creative economy, but for every other place where the money bags and the war chests can find themselves, they back off because they feel that the system itself is rigged against them. How do we rebuild that confidence in closing?
Joe, the first question I always ask anybody who brings this conversation, and the conversation I'm engaged with, the first thing I always tell them, if someone tells you your vote doesn't count, they will win the election anyway, then the same person hypocritically is going behind to pay for votes. That is a contradiction. So it is clear that a vote can, which Nigeria has only proved, a vote can only be rigged or collation could only be miscalculated if you do not participate. So what's key is participate and participate whole 9 yards. Voting is the least part of an election. You're supposed to participate in party politics, determine who comes out. That is most key in our democracy. You can't wake up when some people who you do not know have selected a few people that are going to rule 200 million people. So I think that's what's most key for me, Geoffrey.
In two things I would like you to speak to. First, INEC has said 14 associations have passed the first litmus test to emerging to becoming political parties. What's your take on these 14 associations? And I also would like you to comment. I think today is 15, so in the next 3 days, we expect, we do not know how that will work, but they expect the River State governor, suspended governor, Similar Fubara, to return to office. We understand that the sole administrator, which I don't know where he belongs to in the law, did a Thanksgiving a few days ago and made a few statements. I would like you to speak to those things.
Okay, with the 14 political parties, I'll clearly state Nigeria, in my opinion, does not need more political parties. The ones existing are not even well equipped or are not legacy parties. I don't see them lasting long. And well, if we're bringing in 14 new political parties, democracy allows it. It's freedom of expression. I think that's guaranteed by the Constitution. But if you're looking at it practically, yeah, I don't see what they would change. Well, I'm grateful that in my time I survived calling a state or in a democracy having a sole administrator. For me, it's a bad nightmare I want us to put behind us, the situation in Rivers. As regards Thanksgiving for something that's totally an anomaly in the Constitution, I say our democracy is better and we'll learn from these ropes. We cannot expect much from people that were born under military rule. They have brought a militarization to a democracy. They brought a militarization to our constitution. And I think more of us need to participate and engage further on higher levels to ensure that Nigeria remains a strong democracy.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Kunle Lawal, for your insights as far as the issues of governance, election, and electoral matters are concerned. Thank you so much for coming on the program. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Let's tell you that the Socioeconomic Rights and Accountability Project is urging the Independent National Electoral Commission to name politicians and political parties flouting constitutional, statutory, and international provisions that prohibit premature electioneering to ensure timely prosecution of both participants and their sponsors. SERAP emphasized INEC's unconstitutional mandate includes sanctioning of electoral offenses such as early campaigns and warned that the commission must not appear to be condoning those political parties, their candidates, or even their actors engaging in activities outside the legally prescribed period. The group expressed concern that political campaigns resumed almost immediately after the 2023 general elections in violation of the Electoral Act, which stipulates that campaigns may only begin 150 days before an election cycle. Now, public relations practitioners have been charged to use communications to promote unity and nation building rather than division and manipulation. The national president of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, NIPR, Mr. Ike Neleako, said this at the Institute's third quarter induction ceremony in Abuja, where 422 members were formally inducted. He stressed that the membership of the Institute is called for guard truth, promote excellence, and build the nation, as it wants NDAs against hiring uncertified practitioners and saying sanctions will follow. And beyond all of that, we can also tell you that the Petroleum Retail Owners Association of Nigeria, Petron, have carried out a raid on what it refers to as illegal operators engaging in adulteration of petroleum products. The raid, which was carried out on the seller's location along Mowe and Ogbere axis on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, witnessed some arrest by the task force team of the Petron. Petron says the illegal dealers constitute a great risk to public health, cause damage to unsuspecting vehicle owners, and have constituted to business in the business for too long. And that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Ozongo. You've been served on Lunchtime Politics. Bye-bye.